Hello everybody, hey the vlogger guy here. I apologize for yesterday I did not read a book. Fortunately I had a real busy day and was tired at the end of the evening, so fell asleep. But we're going to pick up tonight. It's October 13th. And we are going to read another book and something to the diorama today. And in theme of tonight's book, I'm going to add another one of these three-dimensional pumpkins here. So let's go ahead and add them right there. And tonight's book is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Alright. We are going to attempt to hold the book up tonight while we read. So, let's go ahead and get started because this is a bit of a longer story. The Ichabod Crane in the tale tells is a pretend person, but there may have been a real Ichabod Crane who lived on the banks of the Hudson River long ago. The tall tale is an unusual story that has aggressed as it's retold over the years. Ichabod's tale shows how many power of imagination and storytellers can live up our own everyday lives. Ichabod Crane was a schoolmaster in a quiet little village called Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow lays in the peaceful valley near the Hudson River. Nothing much ever happens in Sleepy Hollow. Every day was just like the one before it. Ichabod boarded with a different family in Sleepy Hollow. He lived a week at one house, then a week in another. At every house, Ichabod would hear the story of the mysterious rider who roamed the woods at night on a fast, dark horse. This story scared Ichabod. Why? Because their rider had no head. The story says that the rider had been a soldier in the Revolutionary War. His head had been shot off by a cannonball, and his body was buried in a church graveyard. At night, the ghost rode through the woods looking for his missing head. Every time Ichabod heard the story, he would lay awake trembling all night long. But the people of Sleepy Hollow loved to tell the tale of the Headless Horseman. There was one place where Ichabod did not mind hearing the story. That was at the Van Tassel farm, the home of the richest family in Sleepy Hollow. Ichabod was in love with Katerina Van Tassel, a beautiful young woman who took singing lessons from him. Whenever the tale of the Headless Horseman was told at the Van Tassel farm, Ichabod was too busy gazing at Katerina to listen. Ichabod dreamed about all the money he would have if he and Katerina got married. The only problem was that Katerina had another beau. His name was Brom Bone, and he was as handsome and dashing as Ichabod was homely and dull. Katerina was fond of Ichabod because he was very smart and he read many books As far as she knew, Brom Bones was never read a single book. Brom realized that Katerina might choose Ichabod, so he set out to drive Ichabod away. The first thing he did was to stuff up the chimney in the house where Ichabod was giving singing lessons. All the young ladies and Ichabod ran out to get away from the smoke. The next thing Brom did was spill all of inkwell and turned over the desk at the school. You should fight Brom and put a stop to his tricks, Katerina told Ichabod. But Ichabod was too frightened of Brom to fight him. He's just having a little fun, Ichabod said. One day after school, a servant boy rode up to the schoolhouse. Ichabod was invited to a party at the Van Tassel house that evening. Ichabod was very excited. He rushed home to get ready for the party. After washing up, Ichabod put on the finest suit. Ichabod borrowed an old horse and headed through the woods as the sun was setting. Even though his suit was a bit tattered and worn, Ichabod felt dashing and handsome. Tonight I shall propose to Katerina, Ichabod, he decided. At the Van Tassel farm, the party had already begun. Ichabod was never seen so much fine clothing and wonderful food. He danced with Katerina, and he had a wonderful time until Brom Bones showed up and began to tell a scary story. I met the Headless Horseman last night, said Brom. Crowds gathered around him. He tried to raise him. Brom continued. We were riding along neck to neck until he came to the church bridge. Everyone glided closer to hear Brom's. Then what happened? Someone asked. Then he got to the bridge, Brom said, and the Headless Horseman vanished in a flash of fire. Ichabod felt a chill creeping along his skinny arms. The hair rose on the back of his neck, and he thought for a long, lonely ride home through the dark woods. After the party was over, Ichabod spoke to Katerina. No one heard what they had said, but Ichabod looked very sad when he left. He leaped onto the old horse and began to race through the woods as quickly as possible. The story of the Headless Horseman was on his mind. Ichabod's heart was pounding. Finally, he saw the brook ahead. It's not far now, Ichabod told himself. Giddy up, he shouted to the horse. Suddenly, the horse stopped in its tracks. Ichabod looked up and saw a dark figure in the moonlight. Who's there? He called, terrified. Who's there? The figure came closer and closer. Ichabod could now see that it was the Headless Rider, and he was carrying his own head in front of him. Ichabod screamed and dug his heels into the horse. With a great leap, the horse began to race towards Church Bridge. If only I can make it to the bridge, Ichabod thought. Then the rider will vanish into flames. But when Ichabod reached the bridge, the rider was right behind him. He didn't vanish in a flash of fire. Then, before Ichabod had a moment to think, the rider threw his head at the terrified schoolmaster. The next morning, Ichabod's hat was found laying on the church bridge. next to a smashed pumpkin. But Ichabod Crane was never heard from or seen again. Some people say that the headless horseman caught him to borrow his head. They say you can sometimes hear the strange moaning sound by the churchyard. But if you ask Brom Bones what happened to Ichabod Crane, the only answer you'll get is a smile. And that was tonight's story. I hope you all enjoyed this one. This is one of my favorite Halloween stories. But until we see each other again, bye-bye.